So disappointments have been a source of cash, but that cash has been redeployed into relatively stable growth companies, a lot of the luxury brand companies in terms of our European exposure, but also some of the big U.S. Tech businesses with fortress balance sheets.
High inflation, rising interest rates, and a tech correction at the beginning of the year must be difficult times for growth managers at the moment.
It's been a very difficult 4 or 5 months in particular, quite frankly. And we are trying to just keep our focus on identifying great businesses that are unique and differentiated, businesses that will offer a product or a service over time that customers, both the individual consumers as well as the enterprise, will find useful and worth buying. And those types of businesses will generate revenue streams, cash flow streams, earnings that over time will be recognized, even if they're not being recognized in the immediate market time frame.
So we've seen a decade of growth stocks outperforming. Is now the time for investors to switch their portfolios to value?
Well, there's a bigger question here, and it's always the growth value question. And first of all, let me just say, I tend to be of the mind that growth stock investors and value stock investors can find ways to profit in the market. It doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. They're not mutually exclusive. But I, as a growth manager, do focus myself on trying to identify growth stocks. And I wouldn't be a good value manager. That said, there certainly have been lots of opportunities over the last decade in growth, but a lot of these opportunities are going to continue. I mean, the digitalization of the consumer, digitalization of the enterprise, digital fintech are all trends that have been underway for the last few years and are going to continue to grow and emerge and evolve in ways that will pose a lot of opportunities for growth investors going forward, even in the current environment that we find ourselves.
Are those the sectors where you actually find interesting stocks? And what are the interesting stocks you've found for your strategy at the moment?
Yeah, sure. We focus largely on 3 or 4 of the big sectors. I mean, the technology sector, certainly, consumer discretionary, the communication services, and even healthcare. But within those, we're very, very selective, very picky. The nice thing is that those sectors are all very broad, very diverse. But they're also, hotbeds of ideas and innovation and brands that really resonate with customers. There's not a lot of regulation. There's not a lot of capital requirement. There's not a lot of commoditized business in there that make identifying real unique businesses difficult. So our exposure has been and will likely continue to be largely tied up in those areas.
With the difficult and tough times at the moment and the war in Ukraine, how has that affected your portfolio? How have you switched your portfolio, and which role does the European exposure play in your strategy?
Sure. So we haven't made wholesale changes. We've tried to stay very true to what we do in the first place and the types of businesses that we typically have found opportunity in. On the margin, we have, certainly as earnings have come through in early part of this year, reflected in Q4 results, certainly taken, reduced or eliminated any businesses that proved to suffer from greater pressures, greater competitive pressures, or turned into a weaker link, if you will, in the portfolio. So disappointments have been a source of cash, but that cash has been redeployed into relatively stable growth companies, a lot of the luxury brand companies in terms of our European exposure, but also some of the big U.S. tech businesses with fortress balance sheet, companies like Amazon, which has a growing cloud business alongside its e-commerce business, companies like Apple, obviously, which have very strong product sets. So we've tried to identify and focus on businesses that are very unique and have a real market, leading market position out there that can weather the storm.
Great. Thank you for your time, your insights, and thank you for visiting us here in Cologne.
Of course, great to be here.